Alright everyone, we start off today talking about Donald Trump's kind of impromptu appearance yesterday. He was in New York talking to the NYPD, the firefighters, and so forth there. By the way, more people gathered for what was essentially an off-the-cuff moment there, which hadn't really been pre-planned. It was just sort of, I guess he probably talked to the NYPD and the fire people, but I don't think this was even publicly mentioned, and there were still like a fucking 1,000 people waiting on the sidewalk all up and down just waiting to see him. The number of people who wanted like autographs and selfies and stuff obviously large, but it was funny because Biden could announce a big party, a big get-together a week in advance, and he probably wouldn't have that many people. And keep in mind, New York City is not exactly Trump territory. I know it's his city, and he's the face of New York along with his lawyer Rudy Giuliani and shit, but it's deep, deep blue. It is not the sort of place, even if you're right next to Trump Tower, and I can only imagine the kind of people that want to rent a property near there. Maybe they lean a little bit in the other direction, but it's not exactly red state territory. It's not West Virginia. It is more like what Trump actually is. He's technically a business Democrat, but we'll get through that. He basically confirmed the other day multiple times that he does intend to run in 2024. I'm psyched. I'm happy about that. I think that it's absolutely appropriate. I think Biden is crashing and burning so much it would be basically a shoo-in. Although we are seeing some, how do I put this, fortification, possibly in California and elsewhere at the moment. In North Carolina, they're busily trying to restructure their entire state Supreme Court to do the same, but we are making progress. The populists and libertarians are way out ahead of the leftoids. Just keep working at it. Always go after the local level. Go after the precincts. Go after the city councils. Everything that I've suggested. Just fucking do it. Bite the bullet and fucking do it. Now, first and foremost, before I get into this, and there will be a link in the description, you can watch one of the feeds of this event. It's funny because there were so many leftoids seething and coping and dilating in the live comments. You should go see that because we show up like 20 minutes before the end and start clanking, and then everyone starts spurging out, and it was really hilarious. But there will also be a pinned comment down below if you're watching this video on YouTube. Keep in mind, I make 2 exclusive videos a day that are on the links in that pinned comment, or in the description if you'd like, that don't end up on YouTube. By the way, I will try to do the Super Chat Q&A today. That doesn't go on Twitch because Twitch, I don't have the ability to get tips yet, but I will have it live streaming to Odyssey as well as YouTube because people are capable of tipping me LBC there. So I will be doing the Sunday live chat presumably today and making an extra video, so I got a lot to do because of course one of my books just got done again, and it's a good one, so stay tuned for later. This is good, I think. Looking at the Republican field and looking at the Democratic field, honestly, while there are a couple of standout Republicans that I would gladly vote for, Trump being, of course, #1 among them, even that field isn't like, it's not a heavy-hitting all-star lineup. Most of the likely Republicans are still rhinos, when you think about it. There are exceptions. You've got Ted Cruz, who's a missing link. He pretends to be all populistic. Well, I was wearing the MAGA hat when I was born. That's not really what Ted Cruz is about. Of course, Ted, I have a longer memory than that. Some people might be fooled. I'm not. Rand Paul would definitely be a good candidate. If Trump doesn't run, I will default to supporting him if he does. Yes, I would support him over DeSantis. He, by the way, has also fought against fascism at the Senate level multiple times and even been banned for it. DeSantis is presumably on the list. Although I think he's kind of insinuating that he'd sit it out. Like, not even necessarily if Trump runs. I think the insinuation, though, is due to stuff like this. He's looking at Trump holding rallies, in some cases several rallies a week. They're purely political. He's looking at Trump deliberately setting himself up in opposition to Biden's especially foreign policy. His weak spot right now, the weakest spot of all of the weaknesses, is Afghanistan and the withdrawal there. By the way, you're still hearing very little from the legacy media, for the most part, about the fact that a U.S. contractor or aid worker returning to his family was the so-called ISIS target that was destroyed immediately before we left Afghanistan in retaliation for ISIS attacks in the airport. We accidentally killed our own dude and 10 kids that were standing around the vehicle. What a goddamn botched operation. That's worse than that time that Jimmy Carter sent the helicopter over to Iran. So, again, the overlap is sheer. Now, of course, we remember Jimmy Carter as a failed one-termer. Biden's a little bit Reagan-esque, even borrowed Biden's initial early 80s run slogan, Make America Great Again. I think he's running. Now again, this comes with several caveats, and I have to explain this every time I point this out because don't get people amped up and then, oh, he ends up not running. If he has a health problem, he probably won't run. He'll probably sit it out and become kingmaker instead. Then you have a situation where it could be just as exciting because you have everyone jockeying to suck his dick the hardest. You'd have probably Rand Paul, probably DeSantis, probably Ted Cruz, a couple of rhinos, maybe a couple of also-rans. You would have a fairly packed field, and everyone would be competing for the one endorsement that matters. Now, does Trump sit back like the true mogul that he is, like the Apprentice sort of stuff, and force these people to put on a minstrel show for him so that he can wait till after Super Tuesday and coronate one of the 3 or 4 still viable candidates? Or does he come shooting out of the gate, immediately endorse someone, giving them 20, 30 extra points in the aggregate, and then assuming they're not a complete loser, they go on to win? And at that point, I think it'd come down between DeSantis and Paul, because both of them have been strong allies of him. Both of them have gone in the direction away from Faucism, coronitarianism, both on the populistic side. Of course, Ron DeSantis would have the advantage of the gubernatorial experience. Rand Paul has a little more, I believe, political experience overall. I think both of them well-spoken. That'd be interesting. The other possibility is that Biden has a health issue. If you end up with a situation where Biden has an aneurysm, he resigns, he gets 25th, he dies in office or something, the problem for Trump is that he'll be the same age in 2024 that Biden was in 2020. People will start asking, do we really need to keep running people that are approaching their octogenarian status? We tried this right before. It led to an unelected first female president, which would be a disaster as well if Kamala's there. The only saving grace would be that beating up Kamala in a political race would be even easier than beating Biden. Poorly spoken and demented as though Biden is, nobody pisses other people off as much as Kamala, and she's a no-show Veep. Now, she's trying to do that to keep her head above the fray. I think she expects Biden to be 25th or have an aneurysm or something. I don't know how good a strategy that is, though. It makes her seem weak. It makes her seem uninterested in the goings-on of government, and that could give people lower confidence. The other possibility, and I chance this as a 1 in a million, extremely remote chance, is that the economic damage that Biden's doing heals itself. You know, the private marketplace, despite all of his abuse, manages to ramp up. Joblessness falls, inflation normalizes, prices go back down. We don't get in any new wars, and Biden can say, you know, it started off a little bit bumpy that first year, but now we're in a time of general peace, so I'm running again. That could throw a wrench in Trump's plans because it seems like his initial platform that he's formulating already is basically blue and on bad. It's basically a counterfoil to Biden. Now, right now that works really well. Will it continue to work, though, if Biden steps back and things calm down? Obama did this. You'll remember. Obama, early in his presidency, kept coming out. He'd give soaring speeches. He'd harangue. He made a bunch of stops. He'd push his agenda. Every time he did this, the threat was, even though he was well-spoken, and of course Biden's not, that it would decline his popularity because a lot of those issues were very partisan. People had looked to him as a uniter, kind of like with Joe Biden, but that never actually materialized. At some point, he took a step back. He became a largely absentee president the second half of his first term. This actually improved his approval. Now, Biden tries to remain absent, but he's still giving addresses and shit, and because the internet's more developed now, people are hyper-focused on this shit, partially because they're expecting him to say something crazy. But it's not because people like him. It's because people expect him to die on stage, or they expect him to take his pants off, or say something totally stupid. Very, very funny. I think, if anything, again, you can watch it, link in the description, yesterday Trump insinuated that he wanted to run in 24. I don't believe it is absolutely ironclad and guaranteed and set in stone, but I think that his focus and his will is set towards that. I believe that if nothing goes catastrophically wrong, or nothing goes significantly right with the Biden admin, and I can't imagine it will, that Trump will end up being the 2024 candidate. There will be a lot of, by the way, reluctant former Trump voters that soured on him towards the end because of certain issues, especially with regards to censorship, I think, that'll climb back on board. They may not be as hardened as they were before, but it'll be a meme free-for-all just like 2016, and it'll be goddamn hilarious, so I hope it happens. That's about all. Peace out.